Yet another ICE detention facility with a catchy name. This one, the Speedway Slammer, a nod to Indiana's racing heritage and the Indy 500. The Department of Homeland Security says the facility will be located at the Miami Correctional Facility, about 70 miles north of Indianapolis, on the grounds of the former Grissom Air Force Base. The maximum security prison will add 1,000 new beds for immigration and customs enforcement detainees. On Fox and Friends, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said many of those detainees will be prepared for deportation.
When individuals, these criminal illegal aliens, the worst of the worst, are detained by ICE, they will be processed and go through due process and paperwork and then return to their countries. Obviously, we want them, if they've committed criminal acts or been convicted of them, we want them to pay the consequences of that. But then we will send them home. They don't belong in this country. They never should have been allowed in under the Biden administration. And so that's what this facility is in Indiana.
Noem compared the Speedway Slammer to Florida's controversial detention center in the Everglades, dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. DHS says the expansion is funded by the recently passed One Big Beautiful Bill, which adds 80,000 new ICE beds nationwide. The Indianapolis Star reports Republican Governor Mike Braun signed an executive order in January directing Indiana law enforcers to fully cooperate with the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. DHS also plans to use Camp Atterbury in Indiana as another temporary holding site in the future.
Moving on, Chicago has recently been ranked among the most polluted major cities in the world, and the reasons behind it does stretch far beyond the city limits. A combination of wildfire smoke from Canada and ground-level ozone pollution is choking the skies over the Midwest. Chicago, in particular, has been hit hard as shifting winds carry smoke south from more than 700 active wildfires burning across Canada. Even when the haze seems to be clear, fine particulate matter often lingers, creating persistent air quality concerns across the region. And it's not just the smoke. Chicago is also battling high ozone levels by a product of vehicle and factory emissions cooking in the summer sun. When combined with heat and stagnant air, it creates a dangerous smog cocktail. Meanwhile, wildfires continue to rage across North America, including more than 700 across Canada and now a major blaze in Southern California. Time-lapse footage also shows the Gifford fire tearing through dry terrain near Santa Maria. The fire has now scorched more than 83,000 acres inside Los Padres National Forest. Over 1,000 firefighters are battling the blaze by land and air, with strong winds expected to continue fanning the flames. The National Weather Service warns that Southern California faces elevated fire risk in the coming days as hot, gusty conditions persist throughout. And up in British Columbia, the province is also grappling with the dangerous wildfire season. Emergency Management Minister Kelly Green says approximately 400 homes are now under evacuation order and another 700 are on alert. Forest Minister Ravi Parma says there are 120 active wildfires across British Columbia, with 12 new ones igniting in the just past 24 hours. One of the most concerning is the Weasley Witch Fire near Cameron Lake on Vancouver Island, now at 538 hectares. With cooler temperatures and rain expected in southern British Columbia, officials are hopeful, but says it's a stark reminder of how quickly conditions can change.
Now, Japan's population has seen its steepest drop on record. New government data shows that the number of Japanese nationals fell about 908,000 in 2024, bringing the total to roughly 120.65 million, which is the lowest since tracking began in 1968 and also marks 16 straight years of decline in the country. According to a demographic survey by the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, Japan's overall population, which includes foreign residents, stands at just over 124.3 million, dropping by another 554,000 over the past year. Among Japanese people, births in 2024 were a record low at 687,000 and eclipsed by 1.59 million deaths, logged another record high. Among the Japanese regions, Akita and Emori in the northeast, along with the region in the west that recorded the steepest population declines, each losing close to 2% of their native residents. while Tokyo was the only area to see a rise in the native Japanese population, up 0.13% due to a high influx of people to the capital. By age, people between the age of 65 and 90 and over accounted for 29.58% of the Japanese population, while those aged from 15 to 64 made up about 59.04%, both minor increases from the previous year. China and Russia are both grappling with similar demographic challenges. While China did see a slight uptick in birth last year, experts caution that the turnaround may be short-lived this time. Meanwhile, in Russia, births dropped to just 1.2 million in 2024, which marks the lowest figure since 1999. Despite ongoing efforts to boost population growth, China, Russia and Japan continue to face a demographic crisis.
In southern France, a devastating wildfire, the worst the country has ever seen in over 7 decades, is tearing through land at an alarming speed. Officials say the blaze in the Aude region has already scorched an area larger than the city of Paris, leaving behind destruction and tragedy. At least one person has died, another is missing, and more than 25 homes have been destroyed in the village of Saint-Laurent-de-la-Cabressis, about 30 kilometers from Perpignan. The fire, which erupted earlier this week, has now burned through more than 16,000 hectares, and that's about 62 square miles, making it the largest single fire in France since 1949. Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau noted this one fire alone has already consumed more land than all the wildfires in France during some previous years and double the area burned in 2023 as the country faces a new normal of extreme heat and fire danger. Officials say long-term climate adaptation will be critical.
It was very important for us to be there because the disaster is a disaster of unprecedented scale. It was very important because hundreds, thousands of people feel that their most precious possessions, their homes, their vineyards, have been affected.
Nearly 2,000 firefighters are working around the clock to contain the flames, which authorities say are still spreading very quickly. 2,500 homes remain without electricity, and many roads in the region have been shut down. Experts warn that the Mediterranean's dry vegetation and frequent winds turn small fires into massive blazes, and France's wildfire risk is rising fast.
Shifting focus then, US President Donald Trump has said that there is a high possibility of a summit with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in the near future. However, he gave no indication where the meeting with Putin might take place. It would be the first US-Russia leadership summit since former President Joe Biden met with his counterpart in Geneva in 2021.
Well, there's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the round, ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
This comes after the White House confirmed that Donald Trump was open to a meet with Putin to discuss Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. In fact, the New York Times reported that Trump intended to meet first with Putin and then to follow that up with a three-way meeting involving the Russian and Ukrainian leaders. It came after Washington's envoy Steve Witkoff visited Moscow for talks with Putin, which the Kremlin described as productive. Donald Trump on his Truth Social network said that great progress was made in the talks, adding that he briefed some European allies afterwards. There was a call between Trump and Zelensky that, according to a senior Ukrainian official, also included NATO Secretary General and the leaders of UK, Germany and Finland.
Now, Ghana's Defense and Environment Minister have been killed in a military helicopter crash. The military had reported on Wednesday that an Air Force helicopter had dropped off the radar and taking off from Accra just after 9 a.m. local time. It was reported that the helicopter was on its way to an event on illegal mining, a major environmental issue in the West African country. Footage from the crash scene showed smoldering wreckage in a heavily forested area before it was revealed that Defence Ministers Edward Omen Boama and Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, the Minister of Environment, Science and Technology, were among the dead. The 3 crew and 5 passengers on board were killed in the accident in southern Ashanti region. Ghana's Deputy National Security Coordinator and former Agriculture Minister Alhaji Muniru Muhammad also was among the dead, along with Samuel Sarpong, Vice Chairman of Mahama's National Democratic Congress Party. Mahama's Chief of Staff Julius Debra had in a statement said that President and government extend our condolences and sympathies to the families of our comrades and the servicemen who died in service to the country. President Mahama suspended all his scheduled activities for the rest of the week and declared 3 days of mourning starting Thursday, with all flights to be flown at half-mast. Meanwhile, the Ghanaian Armed Forces said investigations have been launched to determine the cause of the crash of the Z-9 helicopter.
And moving on, UK's Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has demanded an explanation from China as to why key parts of the plans for its new mega embassy in London have been redacted. In a letter from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, Beijing has been given 2 weeks to either provide unredacted plans or fully justify the blacked-out sections. Rayner's department said no decision has yet been made, but concerns remain over transparency. The Home Office also noted that a hard perimeter security fence will be required, which could lead to a new planning application. According to reports, the White House expressed deep concern over the project back in June. They warned that the site's location on the edge of the City of London and sits over a host of vital communication cables, including some used by U.S. banks. Several members of Parliament in the Netherlands have raised similar concerns to the U.S. If approved, the embassy is proposed for the formerly Royal Mint site in East Smithfield and would become Europe's largest Chinese diplomatic mission. The plan was initially rejected by local council but was called in by Rayner for government review last year. The Royal Mint Court site was sold to China in 2018 for a whopping $523 million. Critics accuse China of trying to avoid scrutiny and ignoring conditions set by UK officials. A decision on the plans is expected by September 9.